Welcome to WST Podcast, your source for West Coast sports. I'm Big Ben. We got K-Win. It's a quarantine special. I'm here in Eugene. Stop by Ninkasi Brewery. Pick me up a Total Domination IPA. K-Win, where are you?
I'm in Washington. I'm at the Alaska Airlines Center. I came to see you, and you're not here.
Get out of there. The real winners are down in Eugene. Like you said, Pac-12 champions this year. Eugene, Oregon Ducks, Peyton Pritchard, both the men and women's basketball teams won the Pac-12 this year. But we're going to talk about the best West Coast collegiate player in the last 20 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
You had to play in this decade to qualify to be in this list of all-time greats.
Last 2 decades. Turn of the century.
Decades. Yeah.
Last 2. So there's some things I thought about when I was coming up with my top 5 or my players. And it's, generally you look at conference player of the years. Who are those? Who did the writers determine? Who do the coaches determine? But then there's also players that, and I called Chris McGarvey, who was a season ticket holder at Alaska Airlines for the Huskies. I asked him his opinion. He goes, well, Ben, it really comes down to if you aren't winning, and then he used an expletive. You aren't. So you have to look at the winning teams over the course of the last 20 years, which is difficult. Okay, when? You know why?
Because Pac-12, WAC, Mountain West, WCC, they're not winning.
Outside of the Zags, they ain't winning.
No.
So I took that into account. So I took not only my favorite players, just personally, but also those that played well or comprised a team, probably those best players that came out of the last 20 years in the Pac-12 or WCC or WAC.
I want to dig into this criteria a little bit. So are we picking like stats, the players that produced and their body of work and their record, including winning? Or is it potential? Or is it a combination of both?
Well, listen, if we were just doing pure stats, Jimmer Fredette would be far and away if the best player on the West Coast in the last 20 years.
20 years?
Absolutely. Right. The numbers he put up at BYU were massive. I mean, Jimmer, he literally took Utah and turned it upside down. He made BYU not necessarily the powerhouse they are today, but attracted a lot of recruits. You see a lot of players like Jimmer go to BYU now. He made an impact. I would say that. He
made an impact.
But to answer your question.
He's on my list, but he only put up those numbers his junior and senior year. So if you have a 4-year starter, he probably put up better numbers.
Yeah, so it's your resume. It's like sales. You walk in with a good resume, track record. You haven't jumped around a lot. But if you blew it out a couple of years, you're pretty attractive as well.
Okay.
And you know who did that? Klay Thompson.
He was okay in college.
Oh, come on.
He's not in top 10, top 15
no.
of the past 20 years.
No.
No. He's not on my list, and I love Klay. I'm a Warriors fan.
Okay, well, maybe that's my personal favorite then. That's my personal bias. Heavy personal bias in my pick on Klay. But let me break this down a little bit more. John Wilner, who we know and respect from Mercury News, broke down the top 10 teams over the course of the past roughly 20 years, 25 years.
I couldn't get into the Mercury because I'm not a subscriber, but I know an article you read. They kept asking me to subscribe and upgrade. I'm like, oh.
You viewed too many articles?
Yeah.
Your allotment? You hobo, I guess? You periodic hobo? All right.
What I would do is I'd click away and click back and then try to take like screenshots real quick.
Clear your browser history?
Yeah.
So let me give you some of his teams, and this will probably start the conversation. So if we're talking about since the turn of the century, the first 3 were before then. So he calls UCLA the 95 team at O'Bannon.
It's not in the 2000s.
Not in the 2000s. And he's got 88 Arizona. Then he's got 98 Arizona the last time that Pac-12 team won the championship. We get into 08, and this is what McGarvey brought up a lot, was UCLA. I think they went to 3 straight Final Fours, if I remember correctly.
2.
And they had Darren Collison, Luke Richard, Can you hit that one for me? Mahabatu?
Mahabute.
Mahabute?
Yeah.
And then a guy by the name of Westbrook.
Don't forget they had Kevin Love too.
They did. You're right.
In the second one. And then they had Aaron Aflalo too. They were stacked. I don't know how Holland didn't win twice.
Howland must have, I don't know. I look at that roster right now, and that would be a pretty darn good NBA team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how you don't win at that level? They got beat by Derrick Rose that year in the Final Four, Memphis. But that would be one of the teams, the 0-1 Arizona team, built around Richard Jefferson, Gilbert Arenas, Jason Gardner. Luke Walton was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, excuse me, the 97 team was the one that won it for Arizona, go down to 92. And then you have the 2017 Oregon team who went to the Final Four. That's Dylan Brooks, Jordan Bell, Tyler Dorsey. Outside of Kevin Love, who won the Conference Player of the Year, none of those, and Westbrook, none of those names really jump off for me. They wouldn't be in my top 5.
Not any of the players you just said. No, they're not my top 5 either.
So where are you going? Do you want to start at number 5 and then work your way up?
So my top 5 is a team.
An entire team?
No, just starting 5.
Okay. So you broke down point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center?
Yeah, I got a true center. There were true centers in the early 2000s.
Okay, I'll see if I can work from that.
All right.
You start, though.
So my point guard, Jimmer Fredette, BYU guard. Junior year, he averaged around 20 points a game. Senior year is when he exploded. He was pulling up from deep, hitting jumpers from the parking lot. That's when "you got Jimmered" was put into the Webster's dictionary because he's scoring 43, 35, and he shot 45% from the field as well. What some people don't know, in 2011, BYU was ranked 7th. They beat the number 4 San Diego State Aztecs, who had Kawhi Leonard, and Jimmer lit him up for 43 points. Went on to be Player of the Year in the Mountain West. Jimmer Fredette's my point guard. I'm
going to start at center, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to give my center nod.
No. Start at point guard because I think we're going to have the same player.
No, we're not. We're not.
All right. Well, then you picked the wrong player then if you don't have my guy.
Hey, if I just told you Klay Thompson was the best player in the last 20, don't you think I used some different criteria than yourself?
Who do you have? Like Aaron Baines as your center?
No, almost. Actually, that's a great idea. No, I'm going to go with Ike Diago out of Arizona State. This guy, McGarvey brought it again. He goes, hey, if you like 6'6" centers that are just beasts, I think he led the league in rebounds 3 straight years. He was around, I think, when Harden was doing his visit, Diago was there, and I think Harden went into the lane after he was visiting Arizona State, and Diago shoved him into like the 3rd row of the bleachers.
Ooh.
So Ike didn't take guff from anyone. No. Stalwart, Conference Player of the Year back in 2005. So Ike Diago, you are my center, my friend.
I like that one. I like Ike, Arizona State. My shooting guard, if you go right behind me, Alaskan Airlines, his jersey is retired. Brandon Roy. Brandon played for 4 years. All-around player. His last 2 years, they went to the Sweet 16. He was Player of the Year. And in my opinion, he got UW's basketball machine rolling because after that, Isaiah Thomas came through. There's several different first-round, even lottery picks that came through. I got Brandon Roy, Player of the Year, got drafted 6 from the Blazers shortly after that. B. Roy.
Did you have something after that?
Oh, that's my shooting guard.
Are you done? I thought
I'm done.
You ended abruptly there. So quick story about B. Roy. B. Roy went to Garfield, and you're exactly right. It wasn't cool to go to UW for a long time. B. Roy started that. You had Trey Simmons, you had Nate Robinson, you had all these guys, Martell Webster, all from the Seattle area. They looked at B. Roy and said, hey, you're a top 6 draft pick. You went to UW, Spencer Hawes, John Brockman. I mean, they were pulling guys he was competing with Duke. And it was because it wasn't Romar. It was B. Roy. It
wasn't Romar's coaching.
Sorry, Lorenzo. B. Roy made it cool again.
He did.
And he had an older brother, Ed, who was more Seattle than anyone. He went to Garfield as well. But you saw that. You're right. The articulation. I have a lot of respect for B. Roy. He's big in the community here. Still coaches at Garfield. Went and watched him play. He's got his team. The environment, awesome guy, B. Roy. I love your pick there. My power forward, this is a tough one because I'm going to say that we only saw him for a year, but I think being a number one pick says a lot about yourself and the way he's playing in the NBA. It's disappointing we didn't get to see him for a few more years, but he's one of 2 freshmen in the last 20 years outside of Kevin Love to win Pac-12 Player of the Year, DeAndre Ayton. Power forward from Arizona, dominated, man amongst boys for a single year, number 1 draft pick, staying in the same state, playing in Phoenix, and between him and Devin Booker, things are looking up for the Suns.
I like that. I didn't have him on my list, but that's a good pick. I'm not going to argue with you there.
I was going to say Robbie Cowgill, but you have no idea who that guy is, so.
No. I thought when you said he only played 1 year, you were going to go Kevin Love there. And then you switched it on me, and you went Ayton.
Yeah, I believe Ayton had more impact on his team than Love did his. Love had a lot around him, but nonetheless, Love's gone on to have a great career. I just think Ayton had a bigger impact, and probably will be a long-term better player than Love, potentially.
Whoa, we'll see about that one. You're not too far from Lake Oswego. Those Oregon people might be mad at you. What you're saying about K-Love. My small forward, 2003 to 2006. He quite possibly had the greatest mustache of all time. In my opinion, he was the greatest Gonzaga player of all time, Adam Morrison. His senior year, he was co-national player of the year with J.J. Redick. He dominated. He scored. You couldn't stop him. He could shoot the 3. He could drive. He was 6'7". He was a great player. And he did run into UCLA, one of the UCLA teams that we mentioned, Aaron Aflalo. He lost to them in Oakland in the Sweet 16, and that UCLA team went on to the Final Four. Nonetheless, Adam Morrison, scorer, stopper. No stopper, just a scorer. He was one-dimensional, but he was really good. He's my small forward, Adam Morrison.
Shed the most tears of any collegiate player on the court as well.
He did.
Adam was a long hair, the mustache trendsetter. He's the one. I will say this, similar to Brandon Roy and what he did for the UW program. Morrison did a lot for Gonzaga as well.
Yes.
I mean, Gonzaga, before Morrison landed, they had, I think, a run of, since they've had the WCC Player of the Year. Before he won it, they had won it 6 straight years. But then you look at the continuation of that and the attraction of recruits and where Gonzaga's gone. Good pick. I like Adam Morrison. You know who I'm going with for my small forward?
No.
The Adam Morrison of the Pac-12.
Ooh.
This guy, kind of weird as well. Had the fro.
Oh, Luke Jackson.
No. Close.
You were in Eugene. I thought maybe it was going to be him.
I'm getting there. No, this was Josh Childress. If you watch Josh at Stanford, big fro, went on to play in the NBA, actually landed a 3-year, $20 million deal in Greece to play after the NBA, which is huge for someone that I think the biggest contract a Greece team has ever, or professional Greece team has ever given out. Very intelligent, kind of the triple-double type guy mentality, pass the ball, triple threat type guy, Josh Childress. I think, Stanford did well while he was there. But yeah, the fro is, I can't say no to the fro.
He was good. He was smooth. He was like small forward, silky, smooth. He would dunk on people. He had an unorthodox shot, but he could hit it.
Maybe a little side, but it's still pop. Still pop. You're power forward.
2009 to 2011, only 2 years. He was in Tucson. Derek Williams originally signed with USC, went on to Tucson, played for Sean Miller, freshman of the year in 2009, 2010. 2010, 2011 was an All-American player of the year in the Pac-12. They beat Duke in the Sweet 16. They went on to the Elite 8. They faced UConn, but they didn't beat Kemba Walker. But he was a top draft pick after that. Kind of came out of nowhere, surprised everyone. Arizona was in the top 10 most of the year that year. I got Derek Williams, power forward from University of Arizona.
Good pick. Derek was some might have said, I don't know, he worked well in that system just because of what he's shown in the NBA, but I don't mind that pick for a sophomore. Be Conference Player of the Year, go far in the tournament. I'll give him that. All right, my shooting guard. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to consider this guy a shooting guard. And he's a 2-time WCC Player of the Year, the first person to do that, and so far the only one to do that. And I actually got to witness him. He was at Gonzaga, I believe, from 2000 to 2004, and that is exactly. I graduated in 2002, so I got to watch him when I was going to Zags. Balake Step, the guy could shoot. He was between him and Dick Au. I mean, Step was Dick Au more the distributor, Step more the shooter. And he was, I mean, there was shots, fallbacks. The kid could light it up. So Balake Step, you are my shooting guard. Just spot up, and I'll get to my point guard who will find you.
All right. I like that one. He was good. He was underrated. Not a lot of people know about Blake Step.
No. I mean, anytime you're a 2-time West Coast Conference Player of the Year, I mean, even early on, the Zags, I think, won the first 6.
I don't think we're going to have to fact check that. I don't think he was Player of the Year.
Conference Player of the Year. Yeah, twice.
Yeah. I don't believe that.
Can I pause here and give you some West Coast Conference trivia? Why do you not believe that?
Because I'm a West Coast Conference guy.
My intern's Wi-Fi. The intern's Wi-Fi started.
Him being good, but Dick Au would have won it over him.
No, Dick Au won it in 01-02. Balake won it 02-03, and then 03-04.
All right. Well, I stand corrected then. My bad.
Thank you. Unless you want to have a graduated 6th-year Dan Dick Au in 02-03. I mean, he might have been still around the program. Some West Coast trivia for you. West Coast Conference. You went there. Santa Clara. Yeah. Sean Dennison. Do you recall the name?
I don't even remember him.
He co-player of the year with Derek Ravio in 06-07. One guy interesting to me, and the question to you, is there any lore or folk stories about this guy, John Bryant?
Yeah. He's amazing. He's probably, I think, 6'10". I don't know how much he weighs. He was good. You know how there was Big Country from Oklahoma State way back when? He had the same kind of game where he's so big, he'd body you, he'd get to the hoop, he'd rebound. But why he's a legend? Because the rumor has it, he left and went on to be a WWE wrestler after college. That was a rumor.
Big John Bryant. Yeah. So I read something on him. He got stabbed after his junior year.
Yeah.
And made a miraculous comeback and then led the nation in double-doubles and was like a half rebounder behind Blake Griffin.
Yeah, he was a machine.
This guy needs a statue on campus. I want to see him with like the Undertaker by the neck with Blake Griffin, like slam bronzed in the middle of what's the square there in the middle of campus?
Well, we have the Rose Garden, so he could be in the Rose Garden.
Put him in the Rose Garden. John Bryant. Honorable mention on my team. He's my 6th man.
All right.
Another one, 7th man that I got to give a shout out to. I don't know if you remember Tyler Haas, but he went to BYU in 08-09, averaged 24, 8, and 3 a game. He was almost Fredette 2.0.
Okay.
He's my 7th man.
We haven't got to your point guard yet.
I know. I'll save that. We'll get to your center.
My center, 2003, 2005. He was also in Utah, but he went to the University of Utah. He was an Australian. Andrew Bogut from Melbourne. He was Player of the Year 2005. They went to the Sweet 16. He was dominant, big man, left early, played under Majerus. He brought Utah back. Utah was great with Andre Miller, Mike Doliak, if you remember Keith Van Horn, and then they kind of dipped a little bit. And Bogut brought him back, and Bogut was the number 1 pick in 2005 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Andrew Bogut, my center.
Do you know that Pac-12 in the last 20 years hasn't had a National Player of the Year, but the WAC, in which Utah played in before the Pac-12, has had 2 in Jimmer Fredette and Bogut?
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that.
That's odd.
Good stats there.
Thank you. And let's see if I can get this to load. I'm hoping, drum roll, please.
How come Klay Thompson didn't make your squad?
Clay's the 8th, man. He's good. He's got enough money.
Oh, I like your point guard here. She's
my
nice.
Point guard and my overall player of the year for the last 20 years in the Pac-12 in the West Coast is not a male. It is Sabrina Ionescu. And I will tell you why. This is absolutely, I looked her up, and the most interesting thing to me is just how she's changed the Oregon program. Yeah. This past year, she had 9 triple doubles.
Yeah.
I think her
career stats are unbelievable.
Absolutely unbelievable. She went for 21, 12, and 12 against Stanford, 17, 11, 11 against California. 3 days later, she went for 21, 12, and 12. Ridiculous. Yeah. According to Coach Kelly Graves, so the head coach there, he goes, listen, for anyone that hasn't caught women's basketball or doesn't watch, no one watched before Sabrina came to Eugene. She took attendance. The average attendance was 1,500 people before they arrived at Ducks games. Sophomore season, 4,200. Wow. Junior season, 7,100. And then they would have sellouts throughout her senior season. 3-time all Pac-12 Conference Player of the Year. Probably would have been the number 1 pick if she came out last year.
Yeah.
There is no one across the men's game, women's game that has done what she has done for not only Eugene in the program of the Ducks, but probably across the country.
Yeah. Well, like if you look at college basketball players, in my opinion, they either score or they rebound. Some of them assist, but they don't do it all. And you get to the NBA, she's doing like what Russell Westbrook and James Harden were doing a couple years ago. She's scoring, she's rebounding, assists. She totally dominates the game. You can't shut her down. You can't stop her. And she just wills her team to win. And she lights out outside too. She's unbelievable. There's no weakness.
It's rare you find, even in the men's game, someone that can put up triple doubles at the collegiate level. Yeah. And the reason for that is predominantly because of assists. Like, guys aren't as good as the NBA, wide open shots almost, just count it in the NBA. College, it varies a little more. But for a woman basketball player to put up 9 triple doubles in a given year is huge. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And she's made the headlines of the New York Times when we're talking about, COVID and just, her dreams of forgoing the WNBA to come back and win a national championship at Oregon and then stop short. So my player of the year, player of the last 20 years in all of collegiate sports on the West Coast, Sabrina Ionescu.
I like it.
And my point guard.
And your point guard. I agree. I've got nothing to follow that up with. Well done, Ben.
Thank you. So do we want to wrap this up?
No, I have another top 5 list.
Ooh.
Top 5 players in the NBA who are from West Coast schools.
Okay.
You could argue right now. What?
Can I play? Do I get?
Yeah, you can play.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first, and then you can just use my picks?
Yes, exactly. So I can make fun of your picks and come up with better ones. I like this game.
Some would say 3 of the top 5 players in the NBA currently are from Los Angeles, and 4 of the top 15 are from Los Angeles. So I'm going to get into it. I got to look at some notes. Russell Westbrook, 2006 to 2008, UCLA. He didn't play much as his freshman year because he had to back up Darren Collison. But in his sophomore year, when Darren Collison got hurt, he came in, he took the team, he was point guard. Collison came back, he played off the ball, he's shooting guard. They went to the Final Four. And his last game against Derrick Rose in Memphis in the Final Four, hit 22 points. Russell Westbrook, number 1 point guard. James Harden, Arizona State.
Time out. Are you just doing this so the guys that you didn't pick on your 5 don't get mad at you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I asked earlier if it was all about stats or it's about where they are now. Because these players are better now in college because they played with a lot of pros. They didn't put up big numbers.
On that note, and that's when I did make the calls of, hey, asking people, who do you think? They go, it's tough to say because all these, in the last 10 years, it's been one and dones.
Yeah.
So exactly your point. we haven't seen them, but what they've done in college, probably more of these guys on our list.
Yeah, well, all of my players on here left early. My next one's James Harden. He left Arizona State after his sophomore year
season. Yeah,
player of the year. He was All-American, the point guard that year in 2009 with Steph Curry. They're both All-Americans.
James is one guy that I think in college, if you told me this guy is going to lead the league in scoring, I would have scratched my head and probably put the money on the under.
I know, me too.
But is it the beard? It's got to be the beard.
I think it's a beard. Unstoppable. My small forward, Paul George, Fresno State. I was doing research. I'm like, how come I can't find anything about him? He never went to the NCAA tournament. His teams were always under 500. He never had a winning season, and he got hurt his sophomore year. He hurt his ankle, so he really wasn't out there enough
to get any notoriety. He got drafted like top 15, though.
I know.
think there was some when he got drafted, people were scratching their head like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Interesting pick, and you're right. Keep going. Power forward.
Kawhi Leonard. He's not really a power forward, but on this team, I'm going to put him in my power forward. San Diego State, Jersey's retired, freshman of the year. His sophomore season, he did not win player of the year because he was going against Jemmer and the Mountain West. But Kawhi's my 4. And my 5, we mentioned him earlier, Kevin Love.
Melvin Eli?
No Melvin Eli. K-Love. K-Love was a big man. He could shoot, he could pass, he could rebound, and he played with a lot of pros. So he put up big numbers. Or I'm sorry, he didn't put up huge numbers, but he left after 1 year.
I like it. What about Dame Lillard? Can we put him up there?
Yeah, we can.
He went to Weber State, averaged more than 10 points every year throughout his collegiate career. I'm looking at other shout outs we should give, at least people that Peyton Pritchard, I think, deserves some sort of notoriety. Here's a question for you. Number 3 in minutes all time played in the Pac-12 goes to who? Coach's kid. Apparently you can. The dad didn't want to sub
Alford?
Yeah, Bryce Alford. Number 3 in most number 1 in most 3-point attempts. Still, kid would flat out put it up.
I got a name for you, Larry Nance Jr., Wyoming.
Are we considering Wyoming on the West Coast now?
Kind of, yeah.
I'll bring it a little further west and give you someone. When I'm doing my research, I'm looking at the Big West too. If you don't know the Big West, it's comprised of the most interesting mascots in all of college sports. You got.
Wait. I have a question. Did the Big West move to the Mountain West?
You know what? I don't know. I think there's a lot of horse trading going on between the Mountain West, the Big West, and the
Big Sky.
Big Sky. Like, hey, they just move around arbitrarily.
I have no idea.
But the Big West you got the Banana Slugs, you got the Gauchos, Cal State, Fullerton Titans. This guy played for Wazoo for a few years, could flat out shoot. Josh Okoye.
Oh, yeah.
He was the player of the year in that league, had 24 points as a game. His senior year, I think he took him to the tournament too. Another guy on the West Coast that deserves some love. And then I don't think we're omitting anyone else. The only other guy I'd have here is like Luke Babbitt, who shunned Ohio State, went to Nevada.
Is New Mexico in our jurisdiction? Because Danny Granger played New Mexico.
And if that's the case, Pascal Siakam should definitely make your top 5. He's probably
New Mexico State, right?
He's the New Mexico State, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think he put up big numbers there.
He was what conference is this? This is the WAC? Yes, the Western Athletic Conference Player of the Year back in 15 and 16.
Wow.
All right, I don't have any NBA translations for you. It'd just be interesting to see if guys like Peyton Pritchard, who are coming out this year, how they translate to the NBA. I feel like he's an Aaron Craft type of guy. Oddly enough, people are like, or when I ask McGarvey, I go, "What do you think of Peyton Pritchard?" He goes, "He's definitely a guy that's played, I hate the most over the course of the past 4 years." But he has, I think he's, when I look at his stats and the impact he made on the conference, he's top 10 in assists, number 1 in minutes played all time in his career, top 10 in 3-point field goals made, top 20 in points all time.
I got a question. Luke Rittenauer, if he would have played in Peyton's time and Peyton was in Luke's time, would Luke be putting up these same numbers?
Oof. I don't think Luke was as hard-nosed as Peyton is.
Okay.
Luke was more skilled, definitely. He was more skilled, but I don't think he wasn't going to go run into the chest of a power forward and, try to get an and one. Luke was
he was too skinny.
I'll like act like I'm going to do it and then throw it around my back to the power forward for a dunk behind me, something along those lines. But to answer your question, and Luke, I don't think was as good a shooter as Peyton is. I think Peyton Pritchard's underrated.
No, he's good. He's better than Luke, but I just want to throw it out there.
All right. Big Ben and K Win. That's your top West Coast players in the last 20 years. You guys heard mine. UNESCO, K Win. Do you have an overall, number one? You got to give us your overall.
I'm taking your girl. Really? Yeah. I think she deserves it.
She does. Hands down. Hands down. All right. Big Ben and K Win. WST Podcast, your source for West Coast sports. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WST_podcast. Download us wherever you find your podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever you get us. A lot of episodes coming out now with the quarantine.
Yeah, a lot of free time on our hands.
And we're out. Boom.
Boom.